My father he was the first volunteer during the passive resistance campaign of 1946. That's many, many years ago. I was then, of course, 10 years old. I'm 87 years old now. I was 10 years old. And when he defied during the passive resistance campaign, I am not exactly certain what went on in my mind, but I think the political activities that took place in our home made me very aware of the injustices that were taking place. So I gathered a number of black girls, Indian girls, and colored girls. Of course, the whites wouldn't participate. And then I went down. My father was already imprisoned and he was sitting in jail. And then I took a flag, and my cousin helped me to write down with the Ghetto Act, down with the Ghetto Bill, and we decided to march with. As little children, we thought, of course, the police were the culprits of the apartheid regime. So we marched down the police station, up and down, chanting down with the Ghetto Act, down with the Ghetto, and that's how my political career started.
Auntie Mariam, you said that you were only 10 years old when you did that.
Yes, exactly 10 years old. I think they have a picture of mine in the archives of the passive resistor. Of course, after that, I started, I was asked to address the gatherings. Although I was very young, they asked me what I thought of the apartheid regime, and I gave it to them in my simple words. They drafted out in proper English, and then they said to me, "You are going to recruit people because you are an example as a 10-year-old to the adults."
And what followed that particular moment in your life? How did things start to unfold?
Uh, I think it was an excitement for me. I think it was a sort of a political awakening. It was an awakening that I realized that all along I thought white people were separated. And then I realized now that there is something going on.
And did you have any fears? Did you have any concerns?
Actually, that was one thing about me. I was always a fighter. I was always very brave.
Can you mention if you can remember some of the gatherings that you spoke at? Do you remember
I
some of the
spoke,
names?
as a matter of fact, an interesting one would be because you're doing an interview on lead Desmond's partner. Uh, he was addressing a gathering. I've addressed many other gatherings, but one of the gatherings that I remember is at the Gandhi Hall in Fox Street. And Desmond was there, and I was only about, I think I must have been about 14 or 15 years old. I can't exactly remember whether it was during the 1952 Defiance campaign, or was it during the the 1956 march procession to the Union buildings. I'm not exactly which period was that, but that is when Desmond addressed a gathering of Indians in order to invite them to this march. And that was the first time I had the opportunity of meeting Desmond Tutu. So it was a great honor for me as a little child, because there were, Yusuf Dawdu and all of them were there. And as a child, because I was an activist, they had introduced me to Desmond. And then, of course, I've addressed gatherings of 5,000, 7,000, 10,000 people at a very young age. 1946, I was 10 years old. 1956, when the Women's March took place at the Union Buildings, I was already 20 years old. So I was one of the members, I was one of the participants at the Union Buildings. Of course, then I befriended Mrs. Kachalia, Amina Kachalia, Zainab Asfa. They were all in the political struggle. Helen Joseph, and lots of other, Lillian Goy. Rahima Musa. We all became. I was younger than them, but of course we had a healthy relationship. So I communicated them, and because I was a political activist, I was always attending their gatherings. So I was part of organizing the Indian woman with Mrs. Kachalia. We had a lady called Surya Hassan. There was many other Indian women that were activists. And we, Amina Pahad, that was the late Aziz Yusuf Pahad's mum. There was Yusuf Dadu's wife. There were lots of activists. They were elder than me, we all organized the march for in the Indian community, because you must remember we were separated. We had all lived in our own areas, and because of that, we couldn't move into uh, another area and go and be active. So we had organized, I think, quite a number, a substantial amount, about 4 to 5,000 Indian women that marched to the union buildings, and I was present there. Amina Kachalia was one of the ladies, Zainab Asfat. I think if you go into the history, they were all people that defied in 1952 defiance campaign, the 46 defiance campaign, and of course were people that were banned throughout their, practically most of their lives while under the apartheid regime.
And can you describe that day to us, please, Auntie Mariam?
I beg your pardon?
Can you describe what was happening on that particular day?
Oh, it was an excellent, it was a moving experience. Of course, the police were all over. Uh, Hundreds of cars. I mean, they had stopped the buses from traveling, knowing that that's going to be a big march. There was lots of difficulties, lots of difficulties.
And what was going through your mind as a 20-year-old activist who had been an activist for a decade by that stage?
It was interesting, a little a little bit of a anxiety, because you didn't know what to expect, because the entire police force was there. So as a child, as a little, I would say as a 20-year-old, there was you just didn't feel very free. You said, oh my God, am I now going to be arrested? Am I going to prison? Uh, are they going to beat me up? But I think it was just that the women had decided that, it's time we fought, and we showed our strength. We as a people, we want to put our foot down to say that this is not acceptable. Well, we did have a lot of interference. The dogs were there, the policemen were harassing everybody, but people were fearless. Mothers came with their babies on the backs, buying them food parcels in their hands. They came in their thousands, and it was a beautiful sight, absolutely beautiful. And back now, it was a sunny, beautiful day. Uh, and of course, like the leaders, Lillian Goy, Rahima Musa, Helen Joseph, and Sophie DeBrain, of course, they stood up and they say, you strike a rock, you strike a woman, strike a rock, And they said, we will leave it at right. It was straight up, I think, not and they said, we will leave this uh, documents here, and you will accept it. I became a qualified teacher, helped my father, but I was harassed, continuously harassed as a teacher. The special branch would walk in, they would harass me. Uh, uh, I never got promotions. I did my matric after I did JC, and then I did my matric 3-4 years later after I qualified. I only did my higher diploma when I was 35, because I then had to see to my own family when I got married. So it was a bit of a difficult situation. The family in every political home suffers. Uh, there's no political family that have not had to endure pain and hardship. And we had to endure. My mother had to sell samosas. The brothers were all very tiny, and there was no money. She had to borrow money. She had to sometimes we had to go to bed without food. So it was a very difficult period of our lives. So I think he was released at about 4:30, and my sister was only released highly pregnant, 7 months pregnant, and she was only released at 8 p.m. in the night after Helen Suzman intervened.
And how did she manage to, how did Helen Suzman manage to
I think she took the
get you
matter
through?
up in Parliament. She had. I'm not exactly certain what she did. I had my own reservations that I fear that uh, I'm so highly involved that if I get arrested, what's going to happen to my family? So I participated in every activity, but I tried to remain keep a low profile as far as coming out into the open. Although I spoke, they knew about my activities, but they never had could they. So it was a very stressful period of our lives. But with the blessings of Allah, we managed.
And what were some of the teaching tools that you used in conscientizing the students when you were a teacher, and what was your role there?
As teachers, we tried very hard to politicize the groups of children that we were. We had to be very careful how we did it because uh, the principles of that time were not progressive at all. As a matter of fact, if they came to know about it, they would immediately inform the authorities, and the next thing, the special branch would walk into our classroom. Many teachers had lost their job as a result of this. So we did it in our little story forms. We just created little stories to motivate the young children, and we did motivate them. That is why we had a wonderful group of Laotian students who stood up. I was one of the members that started the Democratic Teachers Movement, which was called Sattu. And so I was one of the first, myself, him, and quite a lot of other teachers. We were the beginners of the Teachers Union to fight oppression in South Africa, to defy in our own way. We had to do that. He was also teaching at that time.